Hi, Norm. Welcome to
Hey,
the
Shenea.
podcast. How are you?
Good. I'm swell. Are you?
I am very
Yeah.
good, Norm. I'm so happy to have you on the Live Like an Acrobat podcast. You are just an incredible guest. You are legendary. You are prolific.
Oh, that's sweet. Thanks.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine, and I'm just so grateful to have you on the show today, Norm, to speak about Teatro ZinZanni and all of the world that you have created over these years of just creating an incredible environment with ZinZanni and a show that so many of us within the circus industry and variety industry are so passionate about. It's one of the most coveted opportunities that an artist can have and an artist can get.
Mhm.
It's very legendary. And I just, I was so curious about so many different things, Norm, about like how you got started and how you started ZinZanni and where the idea came from and how it's become just like this brilliant network of dinner theater that's still incredibly unique, I would say, within America. We still don't have so much of variety performances and dinner theater shows within America, and ZinZanni continues to just like lead the charge on that. And can't really hold a candle to
Yeah.
it otherwise. Nothing exists. It's we have ZinZanni, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, my pleasure. It all began. I did festivals for years, big giant festivals. I could get all into that, but I produced a musical at the Barcelona Olympics. And I went there early to scope out the site, and a friend took me to the show inside a Spiegel tent. And when I went inside, I was like off the ground a couple of inches because the environment just invited me to kind of let my guard down, to just dream a little bit. And it's so much easier to enjoy a show when it begins. You're not in a theater where you're sitting next to strangers, got your arms folded, and you're kind of saying, do me, make me want you. So you have to pound so hard to start a show to get the audience to lift off with you. And the tent kind of took me there because it was magical. So it really became key to the environment, the whole environment that the audience is in with the performers became really what drove me forward and saying, okay, it's key. The proscenium theater doesn't always do it for you. An arena doesn't always do it to you. It's how do you put the audience in the same bubble that you're in? Because in the years of doing big concerts, the ticket that everybody wanted to buy and get, first they were begging, can I be in the wings? Can I watch from the wings? But what they really wanted was, can I take my chair, sit it out in front of the singer, and can I sit on stage inside the world being created? That's what an audience really, really wants. And so we started down that road and saying, okay, the tent is a set. The audience members are customers in a restaurant, and we'll do a show about being in a restaurant where a special thing happens. And that's sort of how the idea came up. It made me crazy at first because I had to break so many rules that I had originally thought, but that became the start. And clowning became huge in the beginning. And it's something that I really would like artists and acrobats now to remember. An older trapeze performer was in a family, one of these 5-generation families, told me once that when you get to a certain age, you got two choices. You can be funny or you can shovel elephant shit. So that's your choice. So a lot of, this was a French family and of circus artists. And it's really important how much humor, how much funny is a way to touch an audience's heart. Because if you think about it, it's not just funny, it's romantic.
Mm.
That that how you fall in love, generally you fall in love with people that make you smile or make you happy or make you laugh. That's the number one thing when they survey people. They usually say that's who I pick. And beauty is a close second. I'm not discounting beauty. You can't be an ogre and be funny, and it might not work. But generally it's a close second. So if you want to be romantic, if you want to be beautiful, then throw funny in there and the audience will love you. And it's all about communicating with the audience and giving them joy in their hearts. So it became a priority for me because I studied to be a comic actor, and I did a lot of comedy when I was younger. So clowning was like, that was it. And I got, there's great actors who come up to me and they view clowning as the highest form of theater art. They really don't know how a clown gets a laugh or how laughs are made. You can be serious, but how do you make a laugh? You either got funny bones or you learn how to be funny. And I've worked with both, and that can be just as good. So anyway, that's a very long sentence to your original question about how did it start. That was where the energy went.
Well, I love that answer. It's so brilliant. And, it can't be too long, Norm, really, because where it came from, where that inspiration struck and how important it is to understand how all of the creativity came together and what was the impetus. I did want to tell everybody who's listening of how you and I did meet. I met Norm while on the second Olympic tour that I did for USA Gymnastics, and Norm was producing that Olympic tour. And that's originally how we see creatively.
That was so much fun, especially you guys in acro sport, you ladies and gentlemen and days in acro sport, and in rhythmic gymnastics. Amazing acrobat gymnasts, amazing.
Yeah.
I always think the artistic team always felt more militaristic to me,
right?
Like precision on that. But the real art, was really in those two groups. And that stuff you were doing, I remember this day when we rehearsed, and for the stadium tour, you were so much for playing and creating these little dramas and little dance sections. It was terrific. And, I remember that was when Hurricane Ivan came through.
Yes.
And we were in Tallahassee, and then we had to move to Birmingham.
Yes.
And the hurricane missed Tallahassee and then came right at Birmingham. And we couldn't get any costumes because there was no shipping that was coming to Birmingham. So we had a sponsor, which was TJ Maxx, real high-end clothing there. And I called him and I said, can we go to one of your stores and get costumes? Because we don't have anything. So we grabbed the bus, and as the hurricane was coming and the wind was coming up, I brought a large part of the team with me, and we went out to a TJ Maxx at a strip mall.
Yes.
All the lights were out. Nobody was there. Wind was blowing like crazy. The manager met us at the store. He was really kind of mad. Opened up the door, and we went in and just looted the place. We just grabbed stuff off the rack. Give me that, give me this, give me this, give me this. He couldn't ring anything up because the electricity wasn't there. But it felt so great to, like, in a hurricane, the show must go on. And we had to get costumes there. And actually, I got a Green Bay Packers jacket that day in Birmingham, Alabama, of all places. I still wear it to this day, being from Wisconsin. So anyway. But I remember that. And the show was fun. It was really a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah. I think, that was one of the first times where they had theatrical elements within an Olympic tour in that way. So it was incredibly special. It was the first time that they allowed acrobatic gymnastics or sports acro onto an Olympic tour. So we have always been the discipline, like you said, that brought the theatrical element to gymnastics. And so it was, it was a very big deal having you produce and direct and create that entire tour. They hadn't had something so artistic before. So it brought a lot of people out of their comfort zones. And then it really set the stage for subsequent Olympic tours. That it set the standard that they went off of for a very, up until now.
Yeah. Well, it's so great. I mean, you folks that were in acro sport and rhythmic, I mean, we still have a lot of performers coming through ZinZanni, including yourself, that come from that world, and they know about. Oh, you want to do ribbons? Want to catch a ball? No problem. The little tricks really are fantastic. Plus, you've had a whole career of hand balancing, which came right out of acro sport.
Yeah,
which is tremendously combining it with dance. It's like the audience goes crazy.
Yes, they loved it. They had never really seen acro in that way before, and people that were reoccurring and had been several times, and so that was the first time that a mass audience on that way got to see it, a part of gymnastics, and so it was really, really special. And it was like our trajectory into the circus variete world. After that, me and my former partner Arthur Davis, and it set the stage for everything. I remember I was going to tell you just the other day, I think it was when I was on the plane coming into Chicago recently, the song that you gave to us, the I only have eyes for you.
For you, dear.
It came on.
Oh, really?
I was like, I cannot wait to tell Norm this when I have him on the podcast. It was so special. If you remember, we had everybody dancing and they were slow.
Oh yeah,
that light music.
Yeah. And then you found your partner, out of the light and came into the light and have that moment. I know it. In the show, we always have an audience dance moment. Because for some reason in America, every male after the age of 18 says, I can't dance, especially slow dance. So, we we added it to the show because a lot of people never dance in their life, but you're there with their significant other. Really slow dancing, they say it's a vertical realization of a horizontal desire. And it really means you're just hugging. You're hugging and you're waddling. That's the way people slow dance. But, for 2 minutes to a love song, that can mean a lot in people's lives, just to do that. And it was funny how we learned how to do it. Joan Baez, who was in this show, and she played Madame ZinZanni. Joan Baez is a great actress. People don't realize it. But she started off, she sang a great song, and then the intro started. And she said, I'd like you to dance now. I don't want you to think about it. I just want you to get up out of your chairs, look at that special someone and ask them to dance. Now do it. Get up. Get up. She told them to do it. And you don't ask somebody if they want to dance. Maybe a couple does. But a crowd, you say, you dance now. And they all did, and that became the raison d'etre. You never ask them to dance. You tell them to dance. Because you just have to break down these mild little pebbles that keep people from reaching for the sweet things in life that somebody threw in their way and said, you can't dance, or you can't draw, or you can't sing. I wish whoever those people who say that stuff, should be severely scolded because everybody can do that stuff. As a kid, every kid can draw and sing and dance. I mean, we should always relish any moment to have that moment, even if you think you're not John Travolta or Ginger Rogers dancing if you're much older. But just enjoy those moments. And a lot of people in the shows, that's what they remember.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about shows, it's the small moments that touch you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other part of ZinZanni is animating. In other words, once you break the fourth wall in the beginning, you never take it back. You never go back on stage. You're always there. And you go around and greet the people. You have little jokes with them, little things as your character. It's really good for circus artists to learn how to be a character. And doing these little moments at all the tables articulates that person. We used to call it your clown. Whatever's inside of you to reach people when you're 1 or 2 feet away from somebody, that's what you want to share and articulate, because that's what makes you special. Now, if you're a circus artist, you're always going to have a golden bullet. You're always going to kill at some moment in the middle. You know that. So what do you do else to make the audience think of you as at least an acquaintance, if not a friend? And you applaud much harder for people you know, or think you know, or appreciate that they made the effort. And so they leave with a much richer feeling about you. You're going to see it in your fan bases. You're going to see people remember you. And that's what you're really after, because you get into this art form because you want to have that joy being thrown back at you through applause or whatever. And you have to earn that by becoming their friend. And country stars know that, and they take great change with their fans. But it allows each individual artist to get to know their audience, which they should do. And it brings up sort of the other element. People call it immersion.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is immersion.
Mm-hmm.
But it really isn't. Immersion is kind of a overused term now for any time anybody's near any artist. But really it's intimacy.
Mm.
How do you be intimate with your audience member? How do they feel like they know you as a human being? I mean, every artist we ever worked with, they're special people. They have a big heart. They work hard. They train. They want to reach out. And intimacy allows you to do that. And I guess the last thing about ZinZanni that I always think is important, it's a sandbox if you're a pro. Because we mix pop artists with comedians, with circus, and you're working with people at your level in another discipline. Right. And you get to play with each other and get to feel what each other is doing. And it makes you as an artist more, and I use the word articulate in your responses to the world around you and to other performers. And our main job at ZinZanni is to create great artists and to foster creativity in all the art forms. Because 50 years from now, with the way IA, artificial intelligence, is coming, the amount of hours that people spend on their phone. I'm going to go on a sidebar here for a sec, okay?
Perfect.
Is that all right?
Perfect, Norm.
Okay.
Please do.
Well, there were studies done by Carnegie Mellon and Stanford, still doing them, about use of the internet. And people, all of us are spending hours a day on your phone or on your laptop in artificial online communication. And the one factor they found, no matter who you are, what your background is, age, nationality, amount of money you make, anything, is a feeling of loneliness and depression. Because we're monkeys, we need eye contact.
Right.
Like I'm looking at your eyes right now, but I can't quite get at them. But anyway, I'm pretending I can. But I'm feeling something now. But if you were sitting in front of me, I would get the whole experience that my DNA needs. We're hardwired to have a relationship, a tribal relationship with the people around us. That's millions of years of evolution. We're not hardwired to look at a glass screen and see an image. And so that emotional contact is missing. And when COVID came along, that's times 10 now.
Yeah.
People, you can feel the loneliness, and that creates anxiety. Anxiety creates anger. And we're at a period where people really need to feel a little joy and feel like we know you're there. So having experiences where you're with strangers and in a great sort of almost party atmosphere, I know you're there and I can feel you. You know, that expression, you feel me? Well, that's real. That ain't just, that's not some slang that gets thrown out because somebody wants to say, you know what I'm saying? You know me? No, you feel me is real. And so that was when I did big festivals for years. People would talk about, oh, I saw this group on stage and they were so amazing. And as the internet came in, we started to get more comments about, I was on a street corner at your festival and there was a juggler and he showed me how to juggle. Or I became part of an intimate experience because they knew I was there. And I started to realize, man, that the world needs that contact, that live you can only get it live. So I've committed my life really to live, even though I'm talking to you through a glass screen and a fuzzy image in some apartment building somewhere in Chicago. You know what I mean? I mean, you feel me? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
You're so amazing, Norm, that I can feel you even through this podcast, even on this platform, because that's just the energy and the spirit that you bring through all that you've given through ZinZanni for all of these years. And I'm going to tell you, there is no show like seeing ZinZanni and having that completely change the way that you see yourself as an artist, and that you see the exploration of yourself as an artist. You see the different ways that you can go. I think it's giving you a PhD in all things, because it takes you out of yourself. It takes you out of any kind of stringent, kind of training that you've had. And then you learn how to adapt all of that. The things that people say, the audience members, what they say to me after a ZinZanni show, and what I've heard over the years, and meeting artists that have had the pleasure and the honor to participate in a show over the years, they're like, it's completely changed me. They're like, the way that I've grown, the way that I know myself as a person intimately, the experiences and the responses that they have from the live audiences. Because for listeners listening, we literally sit in your lap and stand on your table in ZinZanni while you get served dessert. That is how connected and intimate the show is. You are literally a part of the show. I mean, I remember when I was at my first ZinZanni show with the great Bianca Sacchetto, and she was doing her fabric act, and it literally just glided across the table, and and her doing her character and laying in the midst of our dinner, and just what that did. You didn't even imagine that could even happen in the show. And so there's all of these enchanting moments that you get all throughout ZinZanni that are just these magic moments that surprise you and that shock you and take you to all of these different ranges of emotions that, again, for one, it's my favorite type of experience to have being with the audience that long. You're not just there for a few moments like you are in different shows that some people would say, might be more used to, where they don't have the expectation for the artist to be sitting right next to them, or to be helping to spoon them a little bit of food, or or take on a different character other than what they even had in their act. I mean, that's done wonders too for my experience, where people don't expect you to show up in a different form, and so the exploration of that over time within the course of the show is just so special and so unique and so riveting. I could just go on and on and on of the different adjectives and the different places that I've gone that have just been so wondrous when I've experienced the ZinZanni show, and then now doing it myself now here in Chicago, and what that does to your spirit. And especially now, people are so excited to have connection, to be out. A lot of people say this is the first time they've allowed themselves to come to a show, is by way of seeing ZinZanni and being in the audience, and how powerful that is, where it feels like there's a level of trust there. They're really trusting the show, and they feel taken care of, and they feel guided throughout. And also too, for listeners, if you have not had the pleasure to see ZinZanni, and I hope that you do get the opportunity, and please do it quickly. We are running here in Chicago and having a phenomenal time with an incredible cast. I do love, Norm, that you take performers and entertainers from all over. They're from all over the world. They're from all over so many different genres and backgrounds. And also, too, just how you do a play on things within each show, which I wanted to ask you about that, too, how you come to those different ideas, because the way that characters switch in and out and the element of surprise that ZinZanni does so well, where you would never think that a character is going to become what they become in ZinZanni. And I won't give away any little tidbits of what characters become because I want people to experience it for themselves, but how that comes and what your creative team looks like in that way. And that journey through character development and show development.
Well, there's a couple of things. First, if you have an act or moment, the biggest question in real life, if you were to do it outside of the theater and you were to just do it for me, I'd wonder why you were doing it. Like, what caused you to do that act? And usually it's a celebration of some kind, like, I want to do this for you, or I'm so excited, or I'm in love. Especially duo acts. It looks like they're romancing each other. That's a good enough story about why two people come together and do an incredible trapeze duo in the air, is because you're wondering what their relationship is. Again, hardwired DNA, we see relationships in everything around us. We don't see the world in pieces. So if you go to a restaurant and you look around, you're already scanning like, oh, that couple, they've been out to dinner too much, they're not even talking to each other. Oh, that's a family, they're celebrating. Oh, these are co-workers, somebody got a raise or something. You're imagining stories. And when you look around, you cannot walk in anywhere with a group of people and not start to label them, not try to figure out how they relate. Where am I? What am I doing? So it's true of your act. You can't be just an athlete and just do it. They want to know who you are and why are you doing this. They may not ask the question, but they can't help but think that. And so that's what we do. And, a lot of ZinZanni has to do, I would often say that we have to deal with love and food. Love is like number one in the universe in terms of the undiscovered emotion that keeps the planet moving forward. Nothing else does, just love. And when you're a baby and you're born and you come out into this world, a world you didn't make, you don't know where you're at, you're coming into the middle of this culture, the first thing you think about is, who out there loves me and when do I eat? And that's something we think about every moment of the day, everybody you meet. Do I like them? Do I not like them? Do I love them? Do I not love them? I'm hungry. I mean, it's a constant motor going in their head. Very easy to play with those things, with love and with good food. And food also helps your performance because you eat a great meal and all the endorphins come out in your brain. You feel great. Alcohol is a great way to kind of let the world come to you without fear. The only thing is, after a big dinner, kind of like Thanksgiving's coming up, right? You have a big meal. What do you want to do? You want to take a nap afterwards. So last part of the show, we got to go high speed because these people are starting to fade. And, so you try to do your engaging difficult things. And at the end, it's move, 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 move. Just physical. Stop talking, just be physical. I guess it's like love too. At some point you got to stop talking and just be in love. So those are standard drivers in the show. The current show with Cleopatra, we've done that 7 times. Started almost 14 years ago when Martha Davis of the Motel wrote all these songs for it. And but now, these days, Cleopatra was probably the greatest, most charismatic politician that ever walked the planet. She was amazing. She had speak 9 languages. All the movies don't do her justice. She wasn't Elizabeth Taylor. She wasn't a femme fatale. No, she was charismatic. She'd walk into a room and all eyes would turn to her and she'd own it. And that's how we played Cleopatra. She doesn't need, Mark Anthony was helpful. Julius Caesar was great. But she was all about owning Rome. And and it wasn't bad. She didn't have this ambition. She just was somebody who was charismatic, kind of like, Bill Clinton in his heyday was a charismatic animal of the first order. He could just absorb any room that he was in and do that. And Cleopatra was the ace at it. And she came that close to ruling the entire Mediterranean. If this Octavian hadn't taken over and decided he had to do some bad PR on her about her being a loose woman and sleeping with slaves. But none of that was true. It was just a bad rapper so that she wouldn't get to have her son become the emperor of Rome. So we gave all that to Liv Warfield, who's in this show. And Liv worked with Prince for about 8 years, and killer singer, comes from the heart. And Liv, she knows what that is, walks out on stage. I said, you walk out or walk into that room, it's yours. You own it. Which the show, I don't know how many people are going to see this show, but a train comes through and drops off a sarcophagus in our tent.
Naturally.
And out of it comes no, we don't make it spooky. They've been in the ground for 2,000 years or some pyramid somewhere. And they come out and they say it's the next life. Because, folks, that's where we're at right now. It's not the new normal. It's the next normal. After COVID, after 4 years of Donald Trump, we're not going back 6 years and pick up the pieces where we were. And it's not happening. Not with all the cultural changes that have happened. The women are exploding. Black Lives Matter is exploding. Cultural appropriation is exploding. For a man, all we're trying to do is retreat and say, okay, what are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules? We're sorry. And trying to figure it out. But it's fun to play with that. There's a lot of jokes in there, a lot of things. And the key to nowadays is, and I think you would see Frank in the show do it, he approaches somebody and he holds out his hands, his empty hands, and he says, may I? And a person says yes, then you can touch. Really simple little rules now going forward. So I think it's an exciting period to be in. I encourage anybody who's an acrobat listening. What we're doing is not artistically unique to us. It's just common sense as you go forward. So incorporate it into anything you do, large or small. Get to the audience. Connect to the audience. It's what they, in their heart of hearts, what they want. And only live performances can do that. Only. So you really be able to touch people. So I'm hoping that more ZinZanni, as things that we've learned and the artists who are in them could take it elsewhere, and it could be part of the art form going forward. That would be the best.
Yes, I mean it will continue to inspire generations, and I feel like we do. I experience that whenever I come in contact with with artists that had the privilege of being a part of ZinZanni and taking that into the rest of the industry, and letting that radiate and kind of ripple through. And you're making good points too, Norm, because it's not always that you get to do performances in a Spiegeltent. And for those who don't know what a Spiegeltent is, well, actually, I will give that over to you, Norm, to describe that much better than I. So please, if you could, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, what do you want me to crank on? I mean, repeat the thought and I'll crank on it.
Of what a Spiegeltent is, for those who have never experienced an actual Spiegeltent.
Oh. It's think of it, it's a carved wood and mirrors tent. It's 100 years old. It was originally a dance tent where you would the owner, which we got it, had been building them for 5 generations. And he said he remembers as a kid it would be 10 pfennigs a dance. Beer was cheap. You didn't make money on beer then. You made money on getting people to dance. So 10 pfennigs a dance was the whole thing. And he said during World War II in Belgium, they would put up the tent. And you weren't allowed to dance because you'd hold people close and you could kind of whisper messages to each other. And the Gestapo locally, no dancing was allowed. But they did allow children to play together. So they would bring a carousel and put it in the middle of the tent. And then they would dance, and somebody would be watching outside, and so the police are coming, and everybody jump off the dance floor. The kids would run and jump on the carousel, and the people just sit there. Oh, look how nice it is. The kids are playing on this thing. So it's when dancing was illegal during World War II, and that's an amazing story. This tent actually that was in Chicago was buried during the war because they were, like many objects, they wanted to protect it from being dragged back to Germany.
Wow.
It feels special. I think a lot of places you can perform can feel special. In Europe, you have the luxury of castles and Roman Colosseums and other outdoor environments that are very special. It does put the audience in a frame of mind that involves them in what you're doing. America, everything's kind of new and doesn't have as much soul in it that we'd really like. But soulful places, like, I always thought if I would ever produce Grease, I'd want to find an old funky garage somewhere where they do auto repair during the day, put chairs in after 5 o'clock. The smell of grease would be in the air and gasoline and everything, and then do that show in there. So you're in an environment that you feel part of. And a performance only accelerates that feeling. Any great place, do it in the woods. Doing it, we used to do passion plays out in the woods here. We had, well, that's a long story, but I won't. But nonetheless, find an environment that you can do it. And if not, there's Spiegel tents still out there running around. There's about a dozen of them now, some new ones, but they're all in the same design. And when I say mirrors, there's mirrors on every single post on all the walls, where the idea is it gives the whole place an enormous feeling of space. Also, if you look at a mirror in front of you on a post, it bounces back, hits a mirror behind you, and you can see what's in front of the post. So it's this sort of tricky place that has all visibility. And having one that's 100 years old, you can feel all the fingernail scratchings on the wood. You know as an animal that you're not the first one that's been in this place. That there's been hundreds of thousands of other creatures like you that have been through here. So it has a feeling that great churches have of being well used over time. And so if the place has got panache, if it has a magical feeling, somebody told me once who worked on WOMAD that a magical place is a place that feels magical when no one is there. And so if you find an environment that feels that way, an outdoor, a meadow somewhere, that's where you want to bring an audience to bring them. And most stainless steel buildings don't have that yet. Maybe in 100 years they will.
Yes, maybe. But it's definitely a specific quality, and like you said, there's not so many things that we have in America that have that quality, that have the history, and have that feeling that you can mimic of Europe. And so that to me is again what ZinZanni represents. And there's just so much circus history here with you, Norm, and I feel also too what ZinZanni does really well is the contrast of the old and the new, and the antiquated and the futuristic and the modern and of the now, and giving it that integrity and giving it that richness. So I mean, any age can really respond to the show from where we're coming from. It hits everybody at so many different levels, and there's such a varying degree of audience members and age ranges as well, and connecting to the show. And I feel like that's, again, something that we don't have so much of here. And I was wondering, Norm, how you felt, if that has felt like a challenge throughout these many years of producing ZinZanni in America, in a space where, you know, other kinds of shows, people push those in a different way, which, again, not my favorite fallback of going into an oversized arena. And many shows have come out of Spiegeltons and gone into arenas. And I've never felt that the show was the same since it was removed from a Spiegelton into an arena. And doing that, you know, obviously for costs and things like that, because it can also too be incredibly expensive to have a Spiegeltent, and, you know, certain things of cutting corners. But ZinZanni has very much stayed true to, you know, the essence of Spiegeltent. I mean, you even put a Spiegeltent inside of a building, which is where we are now in Chicago, which is incredible.
It used to be, it's up in an abandoned attic on the 14th floor. It used to be a Masonic temple up there, but everybody forgot about it. And so when we discovered it, it was amazing, because imagine going up in an elevator, getting it off it, and suddenly you're in an attic with a huge tent in it. And we try to make it feel in the lobby like you've walked into an attic or a special place. Yeah, it is. Culture changes. Musically, people ask me, is there a theme to ZinZanni? And like I said, there's basic themes about love. It's basically a party you walk into where there's a special event that occurs near the top that makes the evening topsy-turvy. But it's not a story that you have to follow in your brain and, oh, what did they say? Oh, I guess they connected to that. It's not wordy. It's more about physical, and it's simple, but allows the audience to follow along a very simple story. In this case, Cleopatra comes back, and she's like a celebrity. That's how ZinZanni treats her. Not like she's the queen, but, oh my God, a celebrity's announced. Cleopatra's here. Nobody thinks how weird it is that she's 2,000 years old. They just accept it. And she just gets into it and joins it like you would at a party. I think that's the feeling we try to reach all ages. Music is incredibly important, and not to have a central theme. Remember, the public gets from the greater audience has heard so many songs in their life. Mm-hmm. They've seen so many television shows, so many films. Really, you stick with a single theme all night, you're boring them. They want you to travel through their mind and find songs that are right on the crest of their wave, but are not the cliches that are in the front of the wave. And you want them to say, oh, I love that song. I haven't heard that song in a long time. And that's a great tune. Or it's a more contemporary. And I guess the other element is, remember, in your dreams have no blackouts. And if a performer and has a blackout, they've ended the evening. So every moment, the ending of one moment is always the beginning of the next, like in your dreams. It should flow like that. And it's hard to follow. It's hard to come up with the way to twist it and make it flow like that. But it's how you dream. I mean, have you ever had a dream? I mean, if you had a dream and a blackout in your dream, you're probably dead. So, but you never get them, or you have to get up and go to the bathroom. You know, for me, it's suddenly I'm rewinding the same scene over and over, and then I realize, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. But, you know, that's me anyway. But otherwise, the dreams are just going through one moment to the other. And that's a wonderful feeling of ease. Most of the time, you're not terrified of that experience. In real life, it's captivating. In your dreams, you're just enjoying it. So I think that's the other simple story, party, moment, everything. End of one thing begins another. As a performer, you exit, that becomes the entrance point for the next moment. People are in the round. They and speakers are all around. You don't know where anybody is by sound. You only know it physically because we're in the round. Oh, I love the other thing. Great thing about I love about circus. There's almost no rules in circus.
Yeah.
That's what I love that. And if you're a circus performer, you are expected to support your other performers. If you got to bring in a chair, you bring in a chair. If you got time, if you got to grab a hula hoop that went off, you're going to do it. Theater, not quite so much. You got to roll. It's got a beginning and end. You don't mess around with that. But in circus, there's that great feeling, and there's a shared history with circus performers about who have you worked with, what family are with. Oh, so and so. That world is wonderfully defined, and it gets into variety too, especially in Europe. That where variety theaters still exist that don't exist in the U.S. really. Maybe in Vegas a little bit, but not every town there has got some variety theater, and a lot of the richness of the comedy comes from that whole circuit. It never went away, particularly in Germany. It never went away. Marlene Dietrich did not disappear. She just evolved into something else. And I'm so glad they kept that together. There's 340 one-ring circuses in France. 340.
Wow.
And it's because France views they have to support culture. You work half the year there as a circus performer, you get paid for the second half. In America, you gotta work all the time. There's no, it's not, it does that. And Russian performers back in the Soviet Union, they made killer circus acts, killer clowning. Greatest ballet dancers in the world. I worked with their actors. Their actors were killer, except you couldn't understand a word they were saying unless you spoke Russian. But that was the best thing about the Soviet Union, is what they did for the arts. Is they really did a great job with the arts. Unfortunately, it ain't not that way now. Ukraine is still a hotbed for great circus training there.
Yes.
And a great place. So if anybody's listening who's an acrobat here, go out and discover the world a little bit. Learn from other circus performers, other things you can learn. Because I'm amazed in that world. I wasn't raised in it. I was trained as an actor, and I was a music producer for years and a tour producer. But when I got into circus, that is the core of great artists really come out of circus. I'm not just saying the other forms. I'm just saying I love it. Yeah.
Norm, with everything that you know, and you've given us so much artistic, intellectual knowledge and richness, and you're such a visionary. And I just thank you again so much for coming onto the podcast, for having me in Teatro ZinZanni. I'm just so honored to have you here. Again, for anyone and everyone listening, Norm is a legend, and you are incredibly lucky to tune in to hear Norm speak about how he's created his Teatro ZinZanni world, his atmosphere, his universe, because it really is a universe unto itself. And we're very, very lucky to experience the specialness of ZinZanni. And I wanted to ask Norm to close out the podcast today. What else would you say that you see moving forward with circus that we should focus on in preserving circus, and what you think is the most important importance for this industry and what this industry maybe still needs that it doesn't have yet. I mean, we're coming back from a lot of things, but what about circus do you feel should never be lost or should at least be able to be held on to? And from a show producer perspective, from a choreographer's perspective, artistic director perspective, an artist perspective, they're all uniquely intertwined and, you know, can't really exist without the other. So what would you leave us with, Norm? Thank you so much.
Well, I think it depends on where you're driving. I mean, for instance, Seven Fingers, terrific group, doing stuff physically that's sort of, as Pilobolus was to dance, Seven Fingers is to sort of group choreography and acrobatics. I mean, I love those. And both Gypsy and Patrick were in ZinZanni before, but they've taken that world to a whole other level. And that's their passion. And they're part of what the future is going to be. For me, it's clowning. I think there's an emphasis in school now on just making great, beautiful acts. But it used to be clowning was part of the repertoire. And the great clowning, there aren't great clowning schools in Europe anymore. And so I would encourage everybody to think funny. Funny is romantic, and it's something we really need now and will always need. To make people laugh is an anecdote to good health. I mean, not an anecdote. It encourages good health and general happiness. So my passion goes towards comedy with a close link to beauty. Can beauty and comedy live in the same space? But I think that's going to be the future. And I think smaller venues, more intimate experiences as things go forward, that engagement is what people, I feel, are wanting. I've saw it in the festival world. I saw it in the concert world. And now it's in what I'm doing now. And it's that contact involving the audience directly in what you're doing. And there's a lot more experimenting that could be done. And I encourage anybody who's listening that's in this world, experiment, please. I want to learn more. So that'd be my closing remark. And you look great. Thank you, Shenea. And you were bright in that tour in 2004. You were a bright star. Your willingness to just do it and not turn around and ask the coach, should I do this? No, you just did it. And I do remember you. And of course, you got one of the great smiles of all time. So,
thank you so much, Norm.
All right.
You're so wonderful. Girl. Thank you so much, Norm. And thank you for just giving your entire life. I mean, you know, for keeping ZinZanni going, for keeping so many artists gainfully employed, and not just employed, but in just an incredible way. Like, really, you know, it's just, this is our love letter to you. And
thank you.
Yes, with all the love and joy that you've brought over the years, over the many, many years. And I look forward to the many, many more years of ZinZanni. And as you continue to just like stay in there and push forward, Norm, again, just reminding people this is not easy. And Norm has just created and continues to create an immense effort within the circus industry, the variete industry, the entertainment industry. And yes, you're just, again, one all of your own. So I just thank you endlessly. I know on behalf of all performers and industry professionals, you know, thank you so much for continuing to push for this type of performance and live art and giving us the opportunity to become the best that we can be too and find ourselves as artists.
Well, onward, I say, onward. Okay.